Pope Francis authorizes to canonize Venezuelan physician Jose Gregorio Hernandez. In Peru, prosecutors summoned President Dina Boluarte for corruption and cover up the Cali, Warma, and presidential treasury cases. And de facto Syrian President Abu Mohammed al-Julani, renamed Ahmed al-Shara, opened a national dialogue conference in Damascus. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR Studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. The Vatican issued the first update on Pope Francis' health on Tuesday, reporting that he had a good night's rest. The Supreme Pontiff has been in hospital in Rome for almost 2 weeks. In the last 2 days, although his condition is complex, he has shown a slight improvement, and the doctors and the Holy See Press Office say that he is not out of danger. The Catholic faithful of the world, coordinated by the churches of spontaneously have united in prayers and petitions for the health of Pope Francis. On the last day, the presidents of Cuba, the United States, and Venezuela once again wished him a speedy recovery. Pope Francis authorized to canonize Venezuelan Jose Gregorio Hernandez. On a communique, the Supreme Pontiff approved the favorable votes of the ordinary session of the Cardinal Fathers and Bishops, members of the dicastery for the causes of saints. By this official announcement, the Holy See formally stated that the popularly known as Doctor of the Poor will be declared a saint, which date hasn't been set yet. This is the first time the Catholic Church proclaimed a Venezuelan faithful saint. The decision was grounded on the vast legacy of Gregorio Hernandez, who has been devoted by not only Venezuelans, but also Latin Americans and Caribbeans.
With great joy, I can announce that today our beloved Pope Francis approved the positive opinion of the cardinals and bishops of the dicastery for the causes of beatification and canonization. He has approved the virtues of our dear blessed Jose Gregorio, who will soon be a saint. Pope Francis will convene a cardinal session where the date of canonization will be announced. May God give much health and life to our dear Pope Francis. And may we soon celebrate the canonization here in Rome, and in Caracas a solemn Mass to give thanks to God for this great gift.
In this regard, the Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro expressed the gratitude of the nation for the canonization. Through his social networks Telegram, the head of the state said, "Venezuela thanks Pope Francis for his historic gesture of canonizing the Doctor of the Poor, our saint, Dr. Jose Gregorio Hernandez. It is a great step and gift he has made to our homeland, an act of justice to a man who in life was the protector of the most humble and who has always worked the miracle of health and life for those who have needed it the most. I thank the Pope for this gesture with Venezuela, especially at this time when we all pray for his health, well-being and recovery. Love is repaid with love. Pope Francis, thank you forever." And in other informations, in the north of the Venezuelan capital, the coffee harvest season is coming to an end. Our colleague Shah Daffel went to meet small farmers who carried out their first production after 2 years of work with ecological techniques.
El Parque Nacional Guaraíra Repano, situado en la cordillera.
The Guaraíra Repano, or Avila National Park, located in the coastal mountain range, is a green lung bordering the city of Caracas, the capital of Venezuela. There, 2 years ago, the farmers of the Laderas estate began to plant coffee, finding in the height of the mountains and in the shade of the forest the ideal conditions for the production of the plant. However, it was a bigger challenge than it seemed, given that part of the land had been deforested by previous owners.
The forest is better because of the humidity and shade. We are recovering trees, planting them all over to get good shade. You know that the best coffee, supposedly, is in the shade.
El suelo empobrecido por
The soil, impoverished by decades of chemical use, also had to be recovered with organic fertilizers and environmentally friendly techniques.
We are trying to create a new topsoil with chicken manure, horse manure, all totally organic, from here, from the area. It is all handcrafted, organic and handmade.
Según los principios de la agroforestería.
According to agroforestry principles, the sustainable balance lies in crop diversity, which also brings advantages for the producer.
Integrating the coffee element into an ecosystem without breaking the ecosystem. Shade production, a productive shade. That the producer can benefit from the shade. In addition to the benefit for the coffee, the shade could have some added value, like planting avocado and soursop trees. In other words, to integrate a whole positive project around regenerative agriculture.
This
February, the first coffee beans were harvested from the farm, but there are still some steps to be taken before they reach the consumer. The artisanal process requires care and a lot of patience.
It is quite a long process. Harvesting it, fermenting it, drying it in the sun, it takes a long time. Then we take it to roast it, so that it reaches the public, the cup.
The expectations are good because, in spite of some points that were missed, I believe that the coffee was harvested at its optimum moment. We did a process to improve, to modulate the flavors, in terms of fermentation. We already have a small batch that was threshed a few hours ago. The first visual of the coffee is spectacular, so I think it promises to be pretty good.
Venezuela fue en el pasado uno de los principales productores.
In the past, Venezuela was one of the world's main producers and exporters of coffee, but production dropped during the second half of the 20th century due to the predominance of oil. Today, the new expansion of coffee in the country in the framework of economic diversification is an opportunity to rethink the means of production, as was done in the laderas. In this sense, Venezuelan coffee, on top of meeting internal demand, has a great potential to compete in the world market, as a growing demand requires constant upgrade in production quality.
Chada Ford desde Caracas para TeleSUR.
And now we have a short break coming up, but first remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. And the scandal over the Libra cryptocurrency scam continues in Argentina despite attempts by President Javier Milei to dismiss the allegations against him. The Argentine head of state headed a cabinet meeting in which he discussed the probable appointment by decree of judges Ariel Lijo and Manuel Garcia to the Supreme Court of Justice, as well as the consequences of the so-called Cryptogate scandal against his government. On the other hand, Argentina opposition deputies requested a special session to promote a parliamentary investigation of the cryptocurrency scam. The scandal not only affects the image of Milei's government, but also calls into question transparency and ethics to the public administration. Peruvian prosecutors summoned President Dina Boluarte for corruption and cover-up in the Cali, Warma and presidential treasury cases. The president of Peru, Dina Boluarte, will testify for the second day in a row on Tuesday after being questioned about the alleged use of presidential car for the escape of the leader of Peru Libre political party, Vladimir Cerrón. In the previous session, President Boluarte also answered nearly 50 questions in an interrogation that lasted more than 5 hours. The Public Prosecutor's Office expects the President to attend again, although it has not yet been confirmed whether she will testify while the Public Prosecutor's Office evaluates the evidence and the development of the case. More than half of Ecuador's workers are in the informal sector, the National Institute of Statistics and Censuses announced on Monday. A survey for January 2025 shows that the figure has increased by 1.4% compared to last January and is the highest recorded in the country since 2007. According to the data, only 34% of the country's workforce is formally employed. This huge increase, which puts informal employment at 56%, means that these workers lack work warranties, security, holidays, and social security, among other important conquests of the workers' struggle. In Bolivia, the government started up a steel plant that will produce 200,000 tons of iron-derived construction materials per year and require an investment of over $500 million. Our correspondent Freddy Morales gives us details.
The plant is located in Puerto Suarez, near the Brazilian border, and will use iron from El Cerro Mutin, one of the world's iron ore reserves.
The truth is that it is a great satisfaction for me, today as municipal mayor of Puerto Suarez, to witness and represent those generations that have fought tirelessly for more than 80 years to see this dream come true.
The steel complex will produce 200,000 tons of steel per year in a first phase, which means half of these materials that the country has been importing until now.
Now that we are going to put this complex into operation and we are going to start producing steel, we will generate more than 700 direct jobs and more than 2,000 indirect jobs. This is what the steel complex represents in social terms.
President Luis Arce recalled that the financing of the complex used state resources and a loan from the government of China.
This is an investment of $546 million where there are three actors involved to finance. First, the financing of the Chinese government, whom we thank infinitely, as well as the brother ambassador of that country, through him. A big hug to brother Xi Jinping. Second, the resources of the central bank with a credit. And finally, to complete all this, the general treasury of the nation that is being invested, along with resources that are here to invest and fulfill the dream of so many Bolivians.
The complex will produce rebar and wire rod in its first phase.
This is a clear demonstration that the Bolivian state has to be and is the fundamental actor to advance towards the industrialization of our country. Industrialization is not just a story, it is a reality. We are showing the whole country that it is possible to industrialize the country, that this depends on the political decision of a government determined to build a solid and diversified economy in our country.
The Mutin iron ore deposit is one of the largest reserves of this mineral, with 40,000 million tons. Its production of 200,000 tons per year means that the state will save some $250 million in foreign currency that it used to spend on this import.
Freddy Morales, teleSUR, Bolivia.
Survivors of internal armed conflict marched in Guatemala's capital. Carrying photos of the murdered and disappeared, dozens of people walked through the historic center of Guatemala City to commemorate the National Day for the Dignity of the Victims of the Armed Conflict. The demonstrators want to honor the memory of the more than 200,000 victims and disappeared left behind by the military dictatorship. The march, which began at 10 a.m., also denounced the failure of the current government to fulfill its promise of dignity for the survivors. Authorities in Havana, Cuba informed Tuesday that search and rescue units found the lifeless body of the boy who had been missing during the floods that affected the Cuban capital on Monday. The victim was identified as a 13-year-old Jonathan Oliva, who was sucked in by a street drainage system as he was crossing a flooded street in his neighborhood. The floods were the result of torrential rains that preceded the arrival of a cold front that hit the western part of Cuba. At least 9 people have been killed in Botswana after flooding caused by widespread rains. Authorities reported that more than 5,000 people were affected by the weather phenomenon. They also detailed that the rains caused a local dam to overflow, causing cars to be swept away and infrastructure to be partially submerged in water. We have a second short break coming up, but before we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English, there you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Israeli occupation continued its aggression on the city of Jenin and its refugee camp for the 36th consecutive day. To date, the Zionist operation in Jenin has left 27 Palestinians dead, dozens of injuries and detentions amidst widespread destruction of property and infrastructure. The number of displaced people from the camp has reached 20,000 and about 430 homes have been completely or partially destroyed. 2,000 students have been deprived of attending their schools, and about 178 people from the city and the camp have been detained since the beginning of the aggression. More than 160 doctors and medical personnel from Gaza are currently being held in Israeli prisons, undergoing severe mistreatment and torture. Human rights organizations such as Human Rights Watch and Physicians for Human Rights Israel have denounced the arbitrary arrest and inhumane treatment of the detainees. Among the prisoners is the director of the Kamal Adwan Hospital, Hussam Abu Safia, who was arrested during a military operation in December. The detention of these professionals have significantly weakened the health system in Gaza, which was already under enormous pressure due to the recent conflicts. These actions have been described as violations of international humanitarian law, which protects health workers in armed conflict. De facto Syrian President Abu Mohammed al-Julani, renamed Ahmed al-Shara, opened the National Dialogue Conference in Damascus. The initiative aimed at outlining a political future for the country after the overthrow of President Bashar al-Assad did not start off on the right foot. The Kurdish party denounced that, like other groups, they have been marginalized. The main session, intended to discuss the structure of a new constitution and the creation of new institutions, among other issues, is being seriously questioned. In the south, protests broke out against the submission of the de facto government to Zionist plans. In Rome, the United Nations Biodiversity Conference COP16 will resume from February 25th through 27th at the headquarters of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO. Previously, in November, COP16 participants sealed a deal which made companies share profits with the owners of those lands they take natural resources from, namely from the indigenous communities. Notwithstanding, COP16 didn't make a quorum to negotiate needy environmental agreements back then. Therefore, the event's organizers decided to hold resumed sessions for COP16 to address agenda items left unresolved. Among the main concerning issues to be tackled is to hammer out a financing plan to reach $200 billion a year for nature by 2030, including $30 billion a year from wealthier countries to poorest ones. And with this information, we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media. We are on Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok as well. For TeleSUR English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.